Dave.
Hey, everybody out there in podcast land. Today's topic is going to be about maintenance versus repairs.
Boy, that's a big, thick subject, isn't it? Because,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah, people come in and they think that every time they go to the shop that everything gets checked on their car, all the fluids, all the hoses, the belts, and all the things that make the car work right.
Well, and you and I both know that it takes time to look over the vehicle and do a really good inspection of that vehicle because we want to make sure that when your car leaves that it's roadworthy and you're safe to be on the road.
But what if the customer's in a big hurry and they want to go to these 5 minute? There's literally a business out there that does guarantees 5 minute oil changes.
Yeah, and that's maybe okay once in a while if you're in a pinch and you're maybe over on your oil change and you need to get it in and you want to you definitely want to get clean oil in there and get a new filter. But the thing of it is make sure that that vehicle gets an inspection. Take it somewhere else when you get the time and get it inspected to make sure that everything is where it's supposed to be.
Right, and many of these cars now, I would say most of them, the manufacturers are putting these big plastic shields or sometimes metal shields underneath the vehicle to protect things from coming off the road and coming up and hitting something underneath there and making a hole in it or whatever. How in the world can anyone say that they can do an oil change in 5 minutes when many of these vehicles take up to 20 minutes just to take that shield off and put it back on, held on by like 20 bolt screws and
Yeah,
plugs?
I don't know exactly how their process really works. I don't know. I know that at our shop, you're absolutely right, Glenn. There's a lot of shields and a lot of things just to access the oil filter.
I can do it with the Sawzall, I mean, I cut some holes in the thing,
But
but there's no way in hell you can, unbolt that thing and take all those plastic pins out of there and that process by itself is 20 to 30 minutes.
And then you want to make sure that there's no leaks and there's no other issues underneath that car. And you want somebody that has a trained eye to be able to check that stuff.
Are we talking about actually doing an inspection on the vehicle? And if so, what kind of inspection should they be getting?
Digital vehicle inspection is
DVIs.
awesome.
Now,
They
what is
are
that
awesome.
all about?
Well, and the thing of it is at our shop, and I know at your shop you do the same thing. We have the ability to take pictures. We have the ability to write a little story on there to let you know what kind of condition your vehicle's in, and then we send it to you via email, via text.
And they're not all bad stories, are they?
No, absolutely. There's a lot of green, some
Yeah.
yellow, and some red.
Yeah, exactly. And so, depending on the depth of the inspection and the descriptions that are given along with that, the customer can determine whether something needs to be done now, if it can wait till their next visit, or maybe even 6 months or a year from now.
Right, and we want to make sure that it works within your budget. I mean, we all know we're all on a budget. Every one of us is you only have so much money to go around. So we want to make sure that we inform you the right way so you can make those intelligent decisions about your vehicle and then you don't get stuck on the side of the road.
Right. I mean, the economy in our country sucks right now, and no one's going to make any bones about that. It's true. So people are watching their pennies, and to me, if I'm going to spend my money, I want to spend it in the best possible place. And so let's talk about different qualities of parts that are used and fluids that are used and things like that. And how does that affect the longevity of your vehicle?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to service a vehicle, and you want to make sure you service it the right way, because if you're just going to service it the wrong way, the service doesn't really mean anything, right? So
yeah,
if you
absolutely.
you start looking, I mean, we at our shop, we use WINS and BG products to make sure that the fluid, when we put that fluid in there, that there's additives, we clean out things, make sure that trying to figure out a good way to say that.
That the vehicle is being completely serviced. Now, for instance, many transmissions now don't have a drain plug on them. They're sealed systems.
Yeah.
So the only way to get that fluid out of there is to hook into its cooling system and, be able to put, like Dave was saying, additives, cleaners in there. You want to pre-clean something. It'd be like, going and washing your clothes and, you've got grease stains and you got buildup on different parts where maybe you've been on your knees fixing something and, maybe just throwing it in the washing machine isn't going to get that stain out or get that cleaning out.
Well, and the big benefit to using like the WINS or BG products is they have a guarantee. So if you service your vehicle when they
Recommended intervals.
Recommended ovals, exactly. They will guarantee the transmission, they'll guarantee the engine, they'll guarantee power steering, components if they fail. So that's a big benefit to our customers.
It is, and that's something that, many shops are using nothing at all. They're just draining and filling, or they're flushing the fluid in and out of the transmission or the engine or whatever component, the fuel system. But there's nothing to back it, and there's no scientific proof that these things are actually working, and there's nothing to back it up if it fails.
Right, exactly, and that's what you want. You want to make sure that whatever you're doing to your vehicle, that you're doing the right thing, and that you have a warranty on it, and that it does give you the longevity, because these cars are expensive. Let's face it. You go out there and you buy a car nowadays, even used cars are they're just astronomical in price.
$25,000, $35,000, $45,000 for a used vehicle.
That's a huge investment.
Yeah, and depending on the type of vehicle, you may just be buying someone's headache that they unloaded. So again, quality inspections prior to pre-purchase inspections. We've talked about those before. But anytime that your vehicle comes in, it should get a bumper-to-bumper inspection.
Right, and we've seen it, and I know you have too, where a customer had bought a car, brought it into you, after they bought it. Well, the car was never serviced. Well, then guess what? After a few years,
you just
this
bought
car
all
says,
of the abuse that they unleashed upon this poor vehicle and the victim who bought it, right?
Right, and then what happens is components start to fail. And when they start to fail, then you start to pay more and more. And when we both know that when you service your vehicle, it's way, way less expensive than to repair.
Oh, I was just going to go into that. In fact, I saw some statistics, and I share them on my website, that maintaining your vehicle saves you 80 to 90% on repairs because those components don't fail now.
Right.
I mean, anything that goes 200,000-300,000 miles is bound to have a failure somewhere along the way, but if you can either prolong that or you can prevent it, or the damage that is done at some point isn't as grandiose, if you will, as it would have been had you not done anything, because that's catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
Catastrophic failure is going to, your transmission blows up, the differential blows up, your transfer case blows up, the engine, whatever it is that didn't.
And those are expensive components.
Oh my gosh.
There's a real expensive components.
Yeah, I mean, people spend, 8, 10. In fact, we had a diesel motor come in here to repair that thing. The engine needed to be replaced. It was going to cost them $34,000 because just the cost of that engine alone was $28,000 to the customer.
Yeah, that's a lot of money, and it's unnecessary. If you can just maintain your vehicle on a consistent basis, and take it to a place where they can look over your vehicle. A lot of times we can even catch something that's going wrong before it breaks.
Right.
And once it breaks, it costs you more money because it destroys other things.
Right. And they had been taking that same truck to a place that was a brake shop. That was their specialty, was doing brakes. So why would you take a vehicle that maybe only needs brakes every 100,000 miles to a place to service it, because they don't know anything about it? They're not diesel specialists. They're not, and that's something that's really important. Does the place where you're going have someone and have the equipment, the knowledge, the training to do?
Well, that's a real important.
The types of things that need to be done, because having the knowledge about that particular vehicle and its recommended services, the types of fluids that are being used. Well, what happens if you put the wrong transmission fluid in something? Oh, this is the universal stuff. It works on everything. Not.
Well, and you're 100% right about that. The cars have gotten more complicated. Even servicing them is more complicated because you've got to put the right fluid in there. Some people just get a bulk tank of oil or a bulk tank of training fluid, whatever, and they put in, if it calls for 0.16, 0.20, 520, they're putting 1030 and everything.
Yeah, oil's oil. What the heck, right? So this actually begins to destroy the internal components because the viscosity or the thickness of that oil. It's like the difference between Crisco, the stuff used for making pies, and Mazola corn oil.
And that you brought up something. You brought up something really funny because
viscosity.
You remember back in the day, thicker was better. Do you remember that? Everything was thicker. 2050 and Motor Honey. Yeah, that's what you put in.
I think that was Arnold Schwarzenegger saying, thicker is better. Yeah,
But now, thinner is better because the tolerances in these motors is so tight that
the oil can't squeeze through there. It starts to wear out the bearings.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, recently we've gotten a lot of late model Dodge vehicles. Their transmission oil is there's only one manufacturer that makes the oil for that transmission, the transmission fluid. If you don't use that and that transmission fails, you just bought yourself a brand new transmission because it voids the warranty.
Right.
How important is that to use the right stuff? There now, back in the day, brake fluid is another great example. There was dot 3, then it went to dot 4. Now it's dot 5.5. If you don't put the right fluid in there and something happens to the braking system, you might as well just take your warranty and light it on fire.
Right, because it's not going to, your warranty, if you do the wrong service on there, it can definitely void your warranty. But, like I said earlier, if you go to a shop that uses like BG or Wins products, they can give you that extra peace of mind warranty on your transmission, your engine, power steering components, brake components. And it's just an added peace of mind.
Right.
And if your vehicle's out, let's say your vehicle's got 150,000 miles on it, or 110, or whatever, you can still, if you service that vehicle at the service intervals that's required, you can add that warranty.
It's a lifetime warranty. So again, you're keeping those service records and going to a shop that keeps your service records. If they're doing pen and paper stuff, and they say, well, I don't know when you have this thing serviced. I don't know how many miles. That's your job. No, it isn't your job. It's their job. So if they're not recording this stuff and they can't print out an invoice saying that at this mileage we service this with this fluid and this everything, these people tell you to go take a hike.
Yeah, absolutely.
The warranty companies, and let's talk about warranty companies for a quick second and how important that is to make sure that you're holding that, your people first and foremost, to making sure that all the information that needs to be in there is in there for getting someone to stand up to a warranty. And what happens if you get pushback from the company when in writing it says this, and now they don't want to back it up?
Well, absolutely. You want to make sure that your warranty is definitely active, and there's no way you don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize that, because if you need it.
Yeah, we actually did another podcast talking about warranties specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm throwing that in there because a lot of times, they're looking for an excuse not to pay a bill for you, And you bought that warranty, and in most cases, you're paying $1,500, $2,500 for that warranty. And even though they break it down into monthly chunks, if at some point you've never been able to take advantage of that, and you've had something break down in your vehicle, and they try to blame you instead of doing the right thing and taking care of that, it's really frustrating.
Right, and modifying your car, you got to make sure that that's within the frame of the warranty before you do anything like that.
In fact, most truck manufacturers now, if you modify the suspension or do anything else like that, you just voided the entire warranty on the vehicle, including the engine, the transmission, everything that's supposed to be under warranty has now been voided, and it says so. And that's why it's so important to read the fine print on these contracts, because they're trying to slip the noose. Let me tell you, they don't want to get hung having to put something on there. And sometimes these modifications, if they're not done by the dealership or an authorized dealership, it does void your warranty. You go in your backyard and you lift your truck, and now the drive shaft falls out. We had that happen to a customer. They raised it so high that the drive shaft actually came out. When the drive shaft was spinning, it broke their transmission. They had to replace not only the drive shaft, and it did damage to the rear differential where the drive shaft connects.
Right.
I mean, they're up for probably a $10,000 bill because they decided to do something that
Well, and let's get back to the warranties here, let's get back to the maintenance that we were talking about, because I want to bring up some examples here of what people really should look for. Like, for instance, the tires. Your tires on your vehicle, you need to make sure that there's a date code on the side there. You want to look at that to make sure that your tires, when they start to get over 5 years.
Wait a minute. Are you telling me that sometimes people will sell you old tires because they were cheap for them to buy and they put them on your car?
Yeah, absolutely. That can happen.
Tires 3, 4, 5 years old that were brand new, and after 7 years, those tires are shot. So you might get 2 years out of those tires. I hope you drive a lot, because.
Well, we tell our customers after 5 years, we really need to, if they're not worn out already, we need to make sure that they're not cracking and they're not getting weathered. Because out here, with the extreme heat, they start to crack, and then if they start to crack, then they start to lose their.
So what's the difference between a good tire and a bad tire? Is it tread depth? Is it composition of the tire itself? I mean, why are their tires same size, same everything, And these tires are $70 a piece, and these are $175 a piece.
Well, it's the way they're constructed. It's the way the tire is built.
And how does a person know that? I mean, who's going to tell them that I'm putting the cheapest tires on there because they can make more money selling you a cheaper tire at a higher price than selling you an expensive tire at a lower margin, because many places are just in it for the money, right? They don't care about selling you, knowing your driving habits. Where are you taking this vehicle?
And I
How
think-
much does
yeah,
your
you
vehicle
nailed it
weigh?
right there.
We've seen trucks come in with regular tires when it's supposed to be an LT, which is a heavy-duty tire with a much thicker, corset inside of it that actually helps the tire to take that excessive weight that you're putting on.
Well, and that's really the most important part is the rating on that side of that tire. You do not want to put a cheap tire on a 1-ton vehicle, or or a passenger car tire on a 1-ton vehicle. You're asking for disasters.
But it happens all the time, doesn't it?
Well, and that's where you've got to you got to find somebody that you can get that information from. Go to your local shop, build that relationship like we talk about all the time. Make sure that they're knowledgeable in tires.
Yeah.
Because some shops, they don't even really sell tires.
Right.
Make sure that they're knowledgeable.
And you can order tires online. You can order through Tire Rack or Walmart or whatever. You can Amazon. You can order your own tires. So if you don't know what type of tire you need, at least consult somebody and find out. There's a sticker in your drawer that tells you what kind of tires should be on that vehicle. Now, if you're going to vary from that,
it says it right on the door.
Right.
Yeah.
But if you're putting on custom wheels and changing the wheel size or whatever, now you might be in a different position, because that sticker is going to tell you to buy the tire that came on the rims that came with it. They're not even the right size.
Right, and people do modify. But you bought a vehicle, maybe not even with the same size tires on it. You know what I mean? Or maybe that they put different wheels on there or whatever.
And that can affect your speedometer too, because
absolutely, yeah.
There's sensors that are reading how fast those tires are going, but they're gauging that on the size of the tire that's on there.
So, also, let's kind of go through a little bit of a list to let customers or let our podcast listeners know, is like tires. We talked about tires. Another thing is making sure something as simple as your battery. Making sure you don't buy a cheap battery or have a battery that is kind of sulfating.
Now, wait a minute. There's different qualities of batteries out there?
Absolutely. There's a lot different. Well, you go in there and there's one's for one's for $100, one's for $110, one's for $150, $200, whatever.
So it's not price gouging. It's actually, there's more plates in it.
Absolutely.
It may have a ventilation system that comes down the sides instead of up the top and doesn't sweat acid all over your battery terminals and make them corrode and crawl up into the wiring harnesses.
Right, and we've all seen that, and I guess that's where I was kind of going with that is that you want to make sure these harnesses, they're electro harnesses. They used to be little cables that were probably 6, 8 inches, 10 inches long. Now they wire your whole car.
Well,
so,
not only that, but some of them go back to your battery's in the trunk, right?
Yeah.
And now that cable is 15, 18 feet long to wrap around all the stuff it has to make it back up to the engine compartment, to your starter, your alternator, which are the...
Yeah. It's all one big unit. It's one big cluster.
Yeah. And you can't just put new ends on a lot of them because of the way they're constructed. You have to replace the whole harness, which in many cases is thousands of dollars and 5 or 6 hours of labor to string those things back to where they were manufactured. So why would you put yourself through that? Because you want to buy the cheapest battery.
Because the maintenance, back to the maintenance. Whenever you get your car serviced, those things should be addressed. They should be looked at. And if your battery is starting to sulfate and starting to spit acid out, we want to make sure we get that cleaned up. We want to figure out if we want to test the battery to make sure the life of the battery is in good shape. And then we want to check all your filters. The thing of it is people, you got an air filter that puts air into the engine, filters the air going into the engine, and then you've got the cabin air filter, which filters the air going in your face.
Yeah.
And we've seen the science projects that developed in some of the cabin air filters, and your car starts to get this funny smell inside when you turn the air on. We want to make sure that we...
I mean, it's not, you got to tell your wife to take a bath once in a while, or
hey,
what are you saying?
You go there, I'm not going there.
So okay, so let's go a little bit further down that road. We had a guy come in with his diesel truck, regular customer, been with us for probably 12, 15 years. And he says, man, I was going up the hill, I was going to take a vacation up at my cabin, and The next thing you know, he says his diesel truck wouldn't go over, 45 miles an hour, and the transmission started shifting, funny and everything. And we had just serviced it a few months earlier, and it wasn't due for any services. So what had happened is for no reason that we could possibly think of, but it seemed like it was starving for air, like it wasn't getting enough air. So my technician, Raul, took the air box top off, and he looked, and the entire air filter had collapsed. It had been sucked into
We've seen that
a
happen
ball.
before. Yep, we've seen it happen.
And then now the air filter was free to move around inside the air box, and it sucked it up into the hose that actually goes down to the motor. And the turbo vehicle, of course, they use a lot more air. That turbo suck in air as hard as it can to compress that.
It's definitely going to be a power
diesel
problem.
fuel.
Definitely going to give you a power problem, no doubt
So he
about it.
turned around, ruined his vacation. He came back, and he says, Glenn, you put that transmission in my truck a couple of years ago. He says, I think it's having problems because it wasn't shifting right, and I couldn't get it to go over 45. He thought it was a transmission problem.
Yeah.
And here's the honesty part of this thing, She says, well, you're not going to believe this, Rick, but, we put a new air filter in because when we showed him a picture, of course, we do a DVI, digital inspection, so we sent him a picture. And he's like, I couldn't believe that, And so he says, and you're telling me that after you put a new air filter in, they fixed all problems? I said, yeah, your truck is running perfect.
Yeah, we had the same problem. We had that happen on a van one time where we did some work on the car, and the customer left there, and the air filter just came apart. And it sucked up in there, and the customer couldn't really get it going over. I think fast they get it going was like 30 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And so... Yeah, that we found it, and it was something simple like that. Thank God, it was easy to fix. But
right, and there are different qualities even of air filters and oil filters,
Oh, absolutely.
And the pleating is where it looks like an accordion, where you got the pleats of material that are actually filtrating the air that's going into your engine, and or your cabin in the case of a cabin air filter. So the quality of and the amount of pleats, and the same with an oil filter, inside that little spherical thing, there's pleated material. Some of these cheap filters, the cheapest ones that you can buy at your local walk-in parts store, only have 7 to 10 pleats in the entire filter. A good filter should have 50 to 75 pleats to give you adequate filtration. And believe me, your oil pump is capable of sucking
Right.
it through 50 to 75 pleats. At 7, as soon as that filter gets plugged up, and I've done videos on my website to show the difference between a quality filter and the pleating in it, and how important that is to catching more of that debris that goes through the filter.
Right, and if the filter isn't any good, it doesn't do its job, and then you're basically, you have no filter. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
it's just basically, it doesn't work at all. The other things that, we've got to wrap this up here, but the other things that I want to really give our listeners a little bit of insight on is fluids. Making sure, just checking all your fluids to making sure that they're all clean, they're up to snuff, or they're full.
Right. If you own a Beamer or a Mercedes or some of the high-end Euro cars, they don't even have a dipstick. Not for the transmission, not for the oil. They have level sensors and stuff like that, and warning things when the oil is contaminated, needs to be changed. Unfortunately, that puts you at odds, because if you suddenly spring a leak in something, your engine's going to be blown before the warning light comes on.
Well, and the important thing is that if like you said, if you can check the fluid, but there again, when you're getting your vehicle serviced, making sure that they're checking all those fluids, because we can check that stuff.
Mhm.
You just don't have a dipstick, but we still can check it.
And the only way you can really check it, though, is if you have a scan tool.
Right,
See it.
absolutely.
You can see the oil level if you have a scan tool. I can read it in Mercedes-Benz or a BMW. Other than that, there's no indicator on the dash with a level sensor with little, waves on the top to tell you where the oil level is until it's too late.
Right. And the other thing is your brakes. If you have
Oh,
plenty of go and no woe, that's a problem. Want to make sure that your brakes are working.
Yeah, gotta have
and
Wilbur, I can't stop it. Yeah.
making sure that your brakes you're in good shape, and we both know, we've seen them. If they get metal to metal, it does damage. There again, there's more expense. If you do damage to the rotors, you do damage to the calipers, all that stuff is just more money. And what you want to do is you want to make sure that the brakes are, at least, 3 millimeters or higher,
Right.
and they get down to around 3.
Right. And I think most adults are pretty sensible about hearing like there's squealers that there's little tangs, metal tangs on the brake pads. When they get low, they start to screech rather, with a real high-pitched squeal. So if you're hearing that, that's a, hey, time to get my brakes inspected.
Yeah.
Now, in the case where someone else is driving the vehicle, your children or whoever else may be driving your vehicles, and they hear the squeal, they got the stereo turned up so loud that
Well,
they
that's
probably
the
can't
thing.
hear
But
it.
most people aren't paying attention to that because they're listening to the radio or whatever. They're listening to, whatever listening to podcast.
I turn my radio up too, folks. Don't get me wrong. I crank my radio up, but every so often, it's at a volume that if I have a noise, a squeak, something going on, I'm going to look at it, and in your case, you need to have it looked at. If everything's fine, then everything's fine. But if it's not, then you may have saved a lot of money by not having to purchase more parts than you need.
Well, most people are out there right now, cranking this podcast, of course. So,
Absolutely, turn it up to 10, baby.
so, okay, so let's just recap here real quick, and then we'll close this thing out. Tires. We talked about tires. We talked about battery. We talked about fluids. We talked about filters, and we talked about brakes. Making sure that we check all of those things.
I forgot one other thing.
What?
The windshield wipers.
There you
Now,
go.
wait a
I
minute.
knew we missed out on
Wait
something.
a minute. What could happen to my windshield wipers that could possibly cost me more money? Well, number one, when they dry out, they start scraping the glass, and believe it or not, hardened rubber can scratch glass. If you've ever had that happen to you or seen a vehicle that looks like the windshield wipers were, scraping the glass, that can happen to you, regardless of the quality of the blade. Now, obviously, you buy a better quality blade, it's going to last longer. It's made of a different type of rubber, different composition, which does make a difference in the longevity and the way it cleans the windshield.
Well, and we're going to be coming into the monsoons here pretty soon, and we get in the monsoon season. Guess what? Wiper blades are going to be a must. You better have your good wiper blades. When that dust and dirty rain starts to come down, you definitely want to make sure you have visibility and you're able to see.
Yeah, and what's more frustrating than being in a rainstorm, even if it's light rain and your wipers go across the windshield, and you're seeing worse than if the rain itself was just falling down on the thing. That's ridiculous. So if you even if you go to the auto parts store and say, can you change my windshield, they do it for free.
Yeah.
Put a good quality blade in. Don't get the cheapest ones that they have, because the little bit more that you spend, the $2 or $3 per blade that you're going to spend on a better quality windshield wiper, they're going to last you longer, they're going to perform better in keeping your windshield visibility.
Right, and another thing we do on our DVI, and I'm sure you guys do the same thing, is we do a light check. Make sure that you have good lights. Make sure that all your lights are working.
And how about the washer fluid?
And windshield washer fluid is another
There's an
important
indicator
thing.
on your dash. It's a little picture of a windshield with little,
Yeah.
It's yellow, and it tells you that your washer fluid is low. Again, you don't want to get stuck when it's just drizzling, and you need that extra
Visibility.
something.
Extra
the visibility.
Yeah.
You may need to supplement the rain yourself with the windshield washer fluid,
Yeah.
right? Because now you're smearing junk all over your windshield and you can't see clearly. Now you're pushing the button and no fluid's coming out. Windshield washer fluid's like $1 for a gallon. I mean,
Right, and my wife gets really mad when I make her stick her hand and climb out the window while I'm driving and wiping off the window.
yeah, it sucks. and then you got to listen to that for the next few days, right? You dirty, whatever. So
Hey, Glenn, how many customers do you have that have over 200,000 miles on their vehicles?
a lot. And they've been my customers for a long time, and that's a testament to the great maintenance that they've allowed us to perform on their vehicle. In fact, my shuttle van is a 2004 Honda Odyssey. It just turned 290,000 miles on it. Still has the original engine, still has many of the original components. The only major thing that I've had to change on that is the transmission, and that was the worst transmission that Honda ever built. From like 2000 to 2004, 2005 they changed the design, didn't have nearly as many problems with the transmissions anymore, and it was getting serviced regularly too. But it did last 237,000 miles.
237. That's
out of the worst transmission they ever built.
Right.
So again, it's a testament. It has the original AC compressor, the original alternator, the original starter. Well, how can you guarantee that stuff's gonna last for that long? I don't know. I just know that I service my battery when I need to. And it keeps the alternator
your
healthy.
connections are good,
You have a nice
everything's
strong
good.
battery when you go to crank the vehicle. The starter's going to last longer, because if it's laboring to try to pull
Right.
voltage from something,
or
those
it's
little
cranking
things.
longer. It just cranks longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's not getting enough voltage. It's not spinning this engine over fast enough.
Exactly. So I mean, all of those things contribute to more delinquencies, as they say.
Well, in my 95 van, I still got that. It's got 274,000 miles on it. It's and I got the original engine and transmission in that too.
Yeah.
So definitely it does work. The maintenance part of it does save you
Yeah,
money.
we're not preaching what we don't practice.
Right.
We practice what we preach, and again, you know, we have these vehicles. If you want to come see them, I mean, that Odyssey that I have and Dave's van, I mean, they're just amazingly in tremendous shape. Well, you guys own shops, you know. I know you're going to say that, but you don't have to own a shop to keep your vehicle in good condition.
Glenn, we don't want to work on our own cars.
We don't.
It's like, you know.
Usually the mechanics, the mechanics vehicle reputation is usually the worst one in the lot, right?
Right, because it's like anybody. Plumbers don't want to go home and fix. I got a friend of mine, he's a plumber, and he's been dealing with some kind of a plumbing problem in his house for the last 6 months, and his wife's about ready to kill him. You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's like, you know, he's just like, yeah, I'll get around to it.
Yeah, I do this every day. I don't want to work on my own stuff. I get it, you know, but it does stress the importance of great maintenance, doing the right thing with the right stuff, and you're gonna
And doing it the right way.
It pays
Like you
big
said,
dividends.
Doing the maintenance on time and doing it the right way. Exactly.
It's like depositing money in the bank. Every time you have a maintenance service, you're putting money back in your own bank account.
Yeah, so we pretty much, I think we've covered everything, Glenn, on maintenance part of it, to let people know that basically maintenance will save you money.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the moral of this whole story, is maintenance will save you money.
Yes, sir. You know what? We're looking forward to seeing you on our next podcast. And if you want to recommend this to somebody or you want to see this online, we're going to look at our logo right here. It says podcastunderthehood.com. So
Check it
recommend
out.
that to your friends. Check it out. And thanks again